years ago. I figured everybody's thinking about the outside, the skin, how your hair looks, wrinkles, all that.
Teeth.
Right? Which, it's important. It's how we present ourselves. It's part of who we are. But to me, the external stuff is a byproduct of what's going on inside.
Yes.
And very rarely does a discussion of healthy bone marrow ever come up. I mean, think about it. How many times have you ever talked about it? You and I have talked about it a few times, but in general conversation at the restaurant, when you're meeting your friends, with your family,
well, even in health clubs or gyms
or doctors.
Yes.
Nobody talks about bone marrow, but what I started thinking about a long time ago was the whole idea that I asked myself as a young man, like, why do people get wrinkles and get all shriveled up when they get older? I thought about it for a long time, and I spent a lot of time just looking at faces, different cultures, and comparing people that I met from Central America and Asia and Europe, and just observing for a long time, like, wow, they've got really nice skin. Look at that old man; he's really healthy. Look at that lady; her skin's so beautiful, and she's in her 80s. It's like, why? And then you look at somebody else, and they're all shriveled up. They're shriveling. They're shrinking. And I thought, what if it ties to the inside of the bones? What if that's where the dryness starts? So one of the thoughts I've always had when I practice is I consciously think about the inside of my bones and all the fluids in my body.
And hydration.
Yes. No question about it. I mean, talk on not just the level of drinking water, but cellular hydration. But think also about kind of hydrating the bones. If you think about a bone that's dried out, like you dry out a wishbone from a chicken, pop, it snaps. When that thing's wet, when it's a healthy bone just before it's cooked, it's really flexible. It's quite strong. It's hard. It's really hard to break it, even though it's a little tiny bone.
Yes.
Now think about the same thing in our whole skeletal system. And I became acutely aware of this issue when I broke my wrist in 7 places at age 50.
Wow.
and I became aware a lot of, like, what is it about my bones that I need to heal? How can I make my bone strong again and supple and flexible with that kind of, just thinking about the chicken bone. But yes. I'm thinking about it internally, and I put a lot of conscious attention to that in my practice because I think it's an inner to outer consciousness. From the inside out.
So were you able to get back the flexibility and the range of motion?
Yeah, it's been a complex issue because there were a lot of things involved, but it's dramatically improved.
Over time. How long has it been since you broke those?
Over 7 years.
So that was a long time ago.
But I made a lot of progress in the last couple of years. Anyway, that's what made me think about bone marrow because it's fluid. I mean, it's elasticity. It's flexibility from the inside. And I remember one of the things that made me think about it was the old stories of the Greeks and the old warriors, like some quote about, I'll suck the marrow from their bones, right? When you conquer the enemy. And
yes.
So
must be a powerful life force in those bones.
It's always stuck with me. Right, and I remember when I was a little kid, I used to love cracking the bones and eat the marrow of the bones.
Not me.
When from the food stuff, I did it. I don't know why, but I did it commonly. I like the flavor of it. Something about it,
interesting.
My body wanted.
Yes.
So I think it's important, and whether we eat bone marrow or not. being conscious of how important our skeletal system is for a straight back, for posture, for stature, for support as we walk.
Hip flexibility.
Particularly as we get older.
Yes.
Each decade, it's more important. And I know some very, very old people that are incredibly strong and incredibly flexible. And I don't know exactly how they did it, but eventually I'm going to know, because that's the key.
I agree, because I've had the opportunity to meet and spend time around elderly people ranging from late 60s all the way up to even over 100. And you're right, like some of them are still driving at 90 and walking upright and taking care of themselves, and others are using walkers and are already bent over at 69 or 70.
And another practical perspective of what you just said is, what happens when you're 80-something and you slip on the floor that's wet and you hit your hip? The vast majority of people break their hips at that.
Yeah, their bones snap because they're dried out.
I don't want to do that.
No. You're not going to, you mean.
I want to bounce.
Yes.
And get back up.
Yes, and that takes healthy bones. So you recommend Qigong for that then?
Absolutely.
Great. That's really great information. And so you're going to be writing about this on the article that you're doing now for Boomer Authority? Okay. Well, we look forward to seeing the video and hearing what you have to say again and reading the blog. And thank you very much, Michael. It's been great talking with you today.
Thank you.